Let's get straight to breaking news, shall we? And let's get more on the situation in the EFL. Let's go live to our reporter, Alan Myers, who is at their head office in Preston. Alan, we have an update on whether this weekend's fixtures will go ahead and going forward. What can you tell us?
Well, Rob, I can tell you I've just received a statement from the EFL. They've just come out and given me it, and all games will be suspended and postponed from this weekend. Let me just read you the full statement I've just been given, and this includes everybody. It says the FA, Premier League, EFL and Barclays FA Women's Super League and FA Women's Championship have collectively agreed to postpone all professional game in England until the 3rd of April. So the 3rd of April, that is, not the 4th of April. The action, which will be kept under constant review, it says, has been taken due to the increasing numbers of clubs taking steps to isolate their players and staff because of the COVID-19 virus, or coronavirus as we know it. The postponements include all matches in the Championship, League One and League Two, as well as all academy and youth team fixtures as well. The statement goes on to say that in addition, clubs are being advised to suspend indefinitely all non-essential activities, which include, but not are limited to, player appearances, training ground visits and fan meetings, which we know. But the breaking news here from Preston is that all games are postponed in the EFL and, according to this statement, across the Premier League as well and other leagues until the 3rd of April.
OK, Alan, thank you very much indeed for that. Phil Babb is here with us in the studio. Damesh Sheth is with us as well. OK, that statement coming against a backdrop of continual breaking news this morning surrounding Premier League clubs in particular. Just remind us where we're at with those clubs.
Yeah, given all the news that's been happening today and during the week, it's no surprise that we've got this statement now. Bournemouth have got 5 players in self-isolation, including keeper Artur Boruc. Everton have got 1 player who's shown symptoms of the coronavirus as well. We've got Chelsea's Callum Hudson-Odoi, who tested positive for the coronavirus, and of course the big breaking news from last night as well, the Arsenal head coach Mikel Arteta, who has tested positive for the coronavirus. One interesting point to be made from the EFL statement, which covered all of the various footballing bodies, was no footballing activity until April the 3rd at the earliest. So there's not necessarily going to be a case where come April the 3rd, OK, here we go again, let's just resume. They're going to have to review the situation on April the 3rd or before, and then make a further decision of when football can resume. Now, it should be noted, just say for argument's sake, they do resume that football. Domestic football, we're going to miss 2 playing weekends because it includes an international break. But it should be noted here that England's international games against Denmark and Italy, they are covered within this suspension, so they will not be going ahead. Women's Super League will not be going ahead. FA Cup ties will not be going ahead until at least April the 3rd. Thereafter, they will review the situation once more.
OK, so that's where we're at, April the 3rd, the suspension of the Premier League, the EFL, WSL as well. OK, Phil, let's get your reaction to that one. It was inevitable, wasn't it?
I think so. They had to follow suit. You know, we were the only major league in world football certainly European football, that hadn't suspended its fixtures. It was inevitable, and again we have to reiterate that it is about the public safety and the vulnerable people that we have to look after. So saw it coming, we all did. It's the right thing to do. Again, it's still unknown, isn't it, Damesh? The fact that it's the earliest is the 3rd of April, it could prolong and prolong, could go into summer, and then there's going to have to be some very difficult decisions to make regarding title winning, relegations. Our season's going to be completed. Are they going to be ended? Who knows what's going to happen? It's
very interesting how quickly it's moved as well, isn't it? Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, came out yesterday and said, look, there's no reason to stop large gatherings. The risk is not high. One person who has the virus will infect 2 or 3 others. It's gotten to the point where players and managers within Premier League football clubs, that's taking it over the edge.
That was the tipping point, because the point that was made by the Prime Minister yesterday was that actually it's safer to have people outdoors rather than perhaps going into pubs and being in close confined quarters there. maybe it's a better option to go to a ground. So it's the players who have been the tipping point.
Exactly. Well, I would say Mikel Arteta more than the players. Once the Mikel Arteta news came out, I think the Premier League then decided we need to hold an emergency meeting here between the 20 Premier League clubs and come to some sort of arrangement whereby the season needs to be suspended, and that's exactly what's happened.
So as you said, this started last night when Mikel Arteta, diagnosed with the coronavirus. Emma Patton is outside the Emirates for us. Emma, what has been the reaction from the club?
Yeah, Rob, like you said, this is where it all really started. A bit of a wake-up call for the Premier League, I suppose. That's why they called that emergency meeting this morning. A statement was released about 11 o'clock last night from Arsenal, and they confirmed that their head coach, Mikel Arteta, had tested positive for the coronavirus. They released that statement. They said that anyone who had come into close contact with Arteta, that is all of the first team, members of the academy and all of the coaching staff as well, are now in self-isolation. The London Colney training ground, which was due to hold a number of media activities today, has been closed off. That is now having a deep clean, as well as their academy set up as well at Hale End. Now, obviously we've heard that the Premier League will now be suspended until April the 3rd. We did know, of course, that Arsenal's game against Brighton was one that was certainly not going to go ahead tomorrow after this Arteta news. Now, Arsenal have had concerns already surrounding the coronavirus this week. That's after the Olympiacos owner, Evangelos Marinakis, had tested positive for the virus as well. Now, he had actually met with Arsenal players, come into contact with them, met with Arsenal staff as well here at the Emirates a couple of weeks ago when Arsenal played Olympiacos in the Europa League. Now, look, obviously massive breaking news. Mikel Arteta did actually say in this Arsenal statement last night that he is really disappointed. He said he took the test after feeling poorly and he will be back at work as soon as he is allowed. Now, as it stands, Arsenal will be playing on April the 4th. As it stands, we know that much for now.
OK, Emma, thank you very much indeed. Let's go back to Darmish. Fast-moving story. Things are changing, the picture changing all the time. And you have a bit of clarification on the Bournemouth situation. Just tell us that.
Just a slight correction. I did say it was 5 players who were in self-isolation, including Artur Boruc. I've since been told is actually 1 player in self-isolation, Artur Boruc, and 4 members of the Bournemouth staff. So those are the 5 people in connection with Bournemouth who are in self-isolation at the moment.
OK, and we're just getting some clarification I think through from Everton. As you might recall, they had one of their players had gone into self-isolation. They've got an update on this. To clarify our earlier statement, Everton Football Club can confirm that 1 member of the Everton first team squad reported a high temperature last night and is now undertaking a period of self-isolation for 7 days. In line with government guidelines, no other players are self-isolating at this stage, but the club's USM training facility has been closed as a precaution, and staff, including players, have been advised to stay away from all club sites until further notice. The health, welfare and safety of all Everton players, staff and stakeholders is the club's absolute priority. Therefore, the club has taken the decision to close down all Everton workplaces, including Finch Farm, the training ground, Goodison Park, and its headquarters in the Royal Liver building in Liverpool City Centre. They go on to say the club's retail store at Goodison Park will also close, but its Liverpool One store is unaffected. That is going to remain open. Liverpool will continue to adhere, they say, to the UK government and public health guidelines with regards to the closure of its facilities and well-being of staff, and we'll be discussing the next steps with regards to upcoming fixtures with the Premier League on Friday morning. So that's superseded that. Further updates will be provided. Darmish.
Just on the Everton story, I've just been given a text from our Northwest reporter, covers Everton very closely, Vinny O'Connor, and it's to do with the player who's in self-isolation, who's shown symptoms of the coronavirus, not necessarily tested positive for the coronavirus, but showed symptoms. And the last contact with the player and the rest of the Everton squad and Everton staff was yesterday. That means the self-isolation started yesterday, and that will be 7 days for now, unless, of course, that player has shown to be tested positive for the coronavirus. A reminder, they're still awaiting the diagnosis, so the full 7 days might not be required.